Connect 2.0 as we call it, the talk series. The second edition of connecting with some of the best practices in architecture while practicing social distancing. Well, actually physical distancing to be precise, as we are still socially connected and growing through collective learning. As many of you know, that one of the objectives of this talk series was to support a COVID fund by Ethos. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the 200 plus architects and interior designers who have so far contributed around 1 lakh to our COVID relief fund for construction workers and daily wage laborers. We have identified APSA, Association for Promoting Social Action, which has action areas in Karnataka and Telangana with the help of, they're helping with bridging the gap between state authorities, employers, and construction workers. They often work with an organization called Nivasa on these initiatives. One of the founders of Nivasa is Akhila Ramesh, an architect I was introduced to many years ago, who chose to move out of commercial architecture and actually move into the space of social action a decade ago. So we feel that APSA would be an appropriate organization for this. We are grateful to Sengobain for supporting this cause, as well as our activity of facilitating colleges to complete their curriculum in these times. This talk series is in association with the Institute of Indian Interior Designers Hyderabad Regional Center, IIID Hyderabad Regional Center. NASA India is our student partner and Architecture Live is our media partner. I thank you all for the associations. The very first conversation or talk in this series is a very current issue. How will COVID-19 change the way we design and plan our cities and experience our built environment? Today we have architect Sonali Rastogi, founding partner of Morphogenesis, to share her views on the future of our cities. Sonali and I go back a long way when we were not really batchmates, but contemporaries at SPA Delhi. Before I introduce her and her firm, I have to live up to my reputation. I'd like you to know that I'll be asking 3 questions per session. There are some of you who are motivated even without any return, but to motivate all, we have some tokens of appreciation. For the first 3 emails we receive at hello@acedge.in. Our team will type in the details as well as the questions as we go along, with all correct answers in a single mail. You would be likely to win ACEDGE vouchers, and Sonali has kindly offered to send a copy of their monograph to each of the 3 fastest movers once, of course, the lockdown ends. I would recommend strongly that you do not type out the answers in the chat box, otherwise you'd probably be giving somebody else the opportunity to qualify rather than you. So my first question to all of you is, I'm not sure how many of you know that Sonali's father was an architect too. Can you send us his name? That's the first question. Sonali's father's name, who was also an architect. Coming back to introducing Morpho and Sonali, Morphogenesis is one of India's leading architecture and design practices, urban design practices. The firm is recognized for reinterpreting India's architectural roots and consistently employing passive design solutions for a unique contextual language. Its work encompasses a range of typologies across architecture, interiors, and landscape urbanism. So here's my second question. There are small firms, mid-level firms, and large firms. I mean, without a doubt, I think Morphogenesis would qualify as one of the larger firms in our country. How many architects are employed by Morphogenesis? How many architects across India are employed by Morphogenesis? I will take up to 20% error in your answers. But of course, the one that's closest will obviously get a better chance at being amongst the top 3. This firm has won over 110 national and international awards, which include being India's first World Architecture Festival Award winners, and has been published in over 850 international and national publications. That brings me to the last question. Recently, they were, not very recently actually, it's been there for a while. Morpho has been written about for its sensitivity on gender issues. I understand from these publications that Morphogenesis pays 2% more to their women employees than their male counterparts. I don't know if I'm stirring up a storm here, but yeah, that's what was published. What percentage of Morpho's total staff is my question. What percentage of Morpho's total staff, not total architects, total staff comprises of women? So those are the 3 questions. Thank you, Sonali, for agreeing to come on board, and I hand over the virtual stage to you. Look forward to being enthralled.
Hi, good morning, all of you, and thank you for taking the time out. I know for most of us, it's still working time, whether it's remote or physically in office, but it's still working time. So thank you for being here. And for me, when I was speaking to Geeta about this morning, and as to what I would like to present, I find it very difficult to actually steer away from the topic that some of us are exhausted of, some of us are worried about, is the COVID-19 topic. I find it very difficult to discuss architecture that I have been part of without discussing the current situation. It's unthinkable. You know, the fact that we are having this webinar, I mean, webinars were always possible, but the fact that we are having this webinar in this format right now is also a result of COVID-19. So whilst Geeta gave me this incredible platform to discuss my work and morphogenesis work over the last few years, but I am going to choose a format of just opening out a lot of questions to you. I will showcase some of my projects, but those also the choice has come after a lot of introspection that sometimes I wonder that I've worked in the field of sustainability now for 25 years as morphogenesis. Have I really been working in sustainability as deeply as I should have thought about it? I've been working on the notion of livability, that how people would like to live. But have I really been thinking about it? So a lot of introspection has come into my mind, and that's got me thinking that suppose I had to go back and look at every single project that I have been part of. Which one of those are somewhat more resilient to change? And this is, of course, like I'm sure all of you who are in this profession have also been having these hindsight thoughts. Oh, maybe that project can quickly adapt. Maybe this one can. Maybe this one can't. And maybe they have to restructure. So a lot of those thoughts have crossed my mind. And together with my colleagues, we've been discussing that on Zoom calls, you know, what if we were to redo this? There are ongoing sites across the country, and we wonder, like, is there going to be a change in the way they manifest once the lockdown opens? So keeping all of these questions as open questions, because I don't want to at all claim that in the last 2 months has taught me everything that there is to learn about how space is going to transform itself. I mean, I don't know at all, actually. It's just a series of questions in my head. And I'm going to use a combination of seeing some of our past work, which appears to me somewhat more resilient in today's environment. And I am also going to keep throwing open questions to you during this conversation. I know that we'll have a lot of time for Q&A later, and I'd be really happy to hear more answers from you than questions in that time, because I think we are all in the search of the same answers. So on this note, I'll share a screen. I'm going to attempt it. Let's hope it happens seamlessly and show you. Yes, I think I'm done. So can somebody just send me a message on the chat that they can see the screen, so I know all of you are doing well?
Sonali, we are good. You can go ahead.
Okay, fine. So this is the first slide, which I normally use to open any presentation. And this has a world map, which is kind of today even more poignant. This was started with a vision when morphogenesis was started by Manit and myself 25 years ago, and ever since then there have been many people who've joined the common vision, was to see in an Indian architecture discourse that gets heard at many platforms around the world, because we felt that that is our contribution to having the Indian design voice heard. Today, the whole world is talking about architecture post-COVID-19. So therefore, the world map to me becomes more poignant. Okay, how do I move to? Yeah, got it. Okay, now this is a morphogenesis design philosophy. In fact, oddly enough, it's a design philosophy that has now been patented. what would seem obvious to most of us, and most of us practice some or the other part of it in our works. We have looked at sustainability from various aspects, and we have set some standards which are by metrics and measurable. We try to design and then post-occupancy measure that we use 50% lesser energy than the current certified green building benchmarks, whatever they may be at that time. As you know, that the green building benchmarks have also been moving to more and more optimization over the last 2 decades. Optimize is so when we optimize, we as you know, morphogenesis works across many typologies and works across many cost brackets. So the idea is not, at this firm, has not been to build conservatively priced architecture, but is to achieve the maximum out of the price point at which we are building. So that a lot of that has been achieved by the project delivery methodology and to reduce consumption. Unique, I'm not going to talk about, because all of us approach uniqueness in our work in different ways. And today, livability is really going to be the focus of sustainability and livability, because earlier we have talked about smart environments, we've talked about community space, we've talked about community engagement, and all of those concepts that we studied at college and then practiced and researched how to bring humans more together, how to increase engagement, have actually been turned on their head. I mean, the whole world is talking about going forward with distancing. So when in this scenario, when everything's been turned upside down, I want to talk about 3 aspects of morphogenesis work: residential, commercial, and workplace. So now when we talk about residential, I'm not at all planning to write a thesis on all that residential covers, but at the moment I want to bring some questions and some thoughts to the table. One of the thoughts I have had, and morphogenesis has had for the longest period of time, is why are our cities filled with 40-50% migrants? Okay, is it necessary for everybody to migrate to such a distance that they only go back to see their families once or twice, or their communities once or twice in the year? So whilst we are busy designing court clusters for families and communities to get together, but 50% of our city populations are actually people living away from their families, or living in absolute squalor when they do live with their families. So anyway, if this migration thing has been requiring some rethinking for a long time, and we, instead of having these high density nodes which keep densifying, like cities like Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, more recently, a couple of others, Pune. And these are the cities that are really reeling under the effect of the pandemic. So is it that we have to think about getting more and more FSI, more and more density, building transport-oriented development that gathers more people on the same location, gives the city the ability to dig a few more basements and go a few more floors higher every couple of months? Or is it that we have to finally think a development plan with a community-based plan, with a localized, decentralized city development and town planning plan? So this is a thought that has been crossing my mind on the issues of migration, that why does Bihar have to supply the labor to rest of the country? And while on a hand-to-mouth situation where they live in such squalid situations, or other states as well. And now with this pandemic has opened so many more issues which are pertinent to that thought process. The next one is that we spent our college years when we studied housing, and then 60s, 70s, 80s developments, late Sri Charles Correa, Sri Doshi, all of these are renowned architects, have worked on housing formats which they have got the accolades for, which are low rise, high density. So is it time that we relook at those so that we are less reliant on packing density vertically and then trapping people vertically high up? Then I want to talk about social distancing. So what impact does that have on density? And this comes back to my first question of constant master plans with constant FSI growth. So what is, I mean, we can talk about standing 1 meter apart all the time, but what is the impact on the density of that city then? Now, I'll go to the more to your habitation level. Given the fact that most of us have stood on our balconies and waved to people, and we have clanged utensils, and now I'm seeing WhatsApp clips of children whose birthdays are being celebrated by people honking on the road, putting on happy birthday music on loudspeakers, and children waving from their terrace, enjoying the happy birthdays. So then, of course, we can come and do mantras, chanting together as a community on our terraces. So I want to, and then, of course, some of us who are vigilante in nature have also, I know, at least where I live, there are people who are actually standing on balconies and taking pictures of people who are and putting it on colony chats, and of course, serious invasion of privacy, but on people who are not following the social protocol. So are balconies and terraces the new social spaces? And if that is the case, then what is the impact on design? You know, is it okay to give a free of FSI balcony, which is 4 feet by 6 feet, let's say, or whatever the different codal regulations in various areas are? Is it okay to do slum rehabilitation in one-room studio apartments with a minuscule balcony where the whole family can't fit? Okay, because if that is their new social space, then we need to think about it. Okay, now sanitizing homes. I mean, homes and healthcare design will probably become one, is my opinion. But I'd like to hear more about it. Okay, now so far, I mean, we now, while e-commerce has already brought delivery to doorstep as a way of life. Now, what does that mean? Are there so many different people going to be delivering so much stuff to us? Or, I mean, as much as we were designing for people movement, do we also design buildings full of dumbwaiters for contactless deliveries? Okay, or are they going to be places for drone landings so that they are delivering packages which are then going contact-free into dumbwaiters? What does the future hold? So these images are things that I have collated from various vendor manuals which have been reaching us. Touch-free powder room, sanitization, touch-free soap dispenser, voice-activated entry. What I was very impressed by is that image on the bottom right-hand side, which says small work pods with the house for noise cancellation. So, I mean, are dining rooms now going to be the new workspaces through the day and family community space at night? Or, I mean, actually, there'll be probably no day and night with I read TCS is going to put 75% of its people from work from home anyway. So maybe there will be that differentiation of day and night will also stop reducing. So are we, I mean, there was a phase when we moved into more open plan, sort of more casually called New York loft style living. But now are we going to go back into this pod and noise cancellation and co-working at home kind of living? So these are just images I'm collecting. I don't have answers. These are just thoughts and images which I'm opening to this forum today. I went back and looked at a residential project we'd done many years ago in Siliguri. Now this was a low-rise villa cluster development. And this has been inhabited now for over 15 years. And it was designed, the cluster planning and the town planning were designed on a basis of equity, ecology, and economy. And this today, I find has found new meaning for me. It was a 400-acre site, residential population of 30,000 people, and housing construction was just $20 per square feet, which is not much, and I think probably relevant even today. Now, this is a typical cluster which I want to come to. And this slide is an old slide. So at that point, 15 years ago, we talked about communal space at the heart of each cluster to encourage citizen interaction and social equity, that everybody has access to the same open space and everybody comes to the cluster. Now, at one level, we are talking social distancing. I want to share a personal experience. I have been finding that I live in Panchsheel Park in Delhi. It's a small colony, it's not very large. Even in that, I have found that people have put up gates and they have localized themselves to particular blocks. And they get a sense of safety from the RWA chat of that block. They say, oh, so-and-so is walking, okay, I'm going to ask him not to walk. Does somebody have neem leaves, dried neem leaves for, I'm getting a pest infestation? Can somebody, if anybody is arranging for bread, can they arrange for me? I mean, suddenly community conversation, which was unheard of. People are asking to share bread and people are asking to share dried neem leaves. It's incredible. I mean, these are stories I'd heard from my grandmother, that in the days when things were not plentiful in many ways, communities used to share. I've had people sharing pickle, from 10 houses down, because pickles run out. So I find that these community spaces which were designed for a different purpose, I think might land up actually achieving a different purpose now. I mean, I think people will be more trustful of neighborhoods, because they will play a role, they will be a stakeholder in the sanitization of their neighborhood. They will become each other's stakeholders in each other's health. So I have a feeling that it'll go back to the simpler life where celebrations and social life is with the community and your immediate community. And therefore, there's a favorite term that Manik, my partner, uses, eyes on the street. I think everybody is going to have their eyes on their street around them. Okay, lesser junk, more ownership, more stakeholdership, more trust. And you will know if somebody in your community has the virus, and or you will protect the street. I found out I phoned my staff that helps me at home to check on their well-being. And my Mali tells me, who lives in a very congested part of Delhi, South Delhi, in Deoli village, he tells me every street has put up a gate. And the people of the street are not letting other people from the other streets in. So whilst it's not a good thing that we don't let others in, but I think because there is always a silver lining in every dark cloud, I think this dark cloud is going to bring community living of a certain kind back into our mind space. And this is where I see that this particular philosophy of cluster design is going to work very well. And this is a larger map of the township. And it's, of course, based on natural ventilation, solar orientation. But today I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about cluster and community living. Of course, ventilation, and we all know now living more cleanly, and another silver lining, we've experienced better environment that we live in. So that, of course, is something that I would stay proud of, that was achieved well in this project. So the design team just made a few notes for me, where what people who are living in these houses, what they will be probably looking at is adding a touch-free powder room at the entry point only. So people can wash, if you see this where one is labeled, where in front of the car, where people, probably every house will be having a touch-free point. Okay, I'm fortunate that I have a large porch in my house. So right now, all my cleaning, hand sanitization, dog paw washing, like that whole area has become that, right? Even my dogs, when they come from the outside, wash their feet, because you don't know where the virus lives. I mean, I can't bathe the dog each time, but God knows whether they'll come to that or whether I'll have dog masks eventually. But my dogs wash their feet in front of the house now. Okay. Similarly, I sanitize my hand. So one is hearing of a lot of sanitization potential. I feel that each and every house is going to do a touch-free powder room and sanitization at the entrance door. Small work pods with the house for noise cancellation is going to become a very big deal. So I know for a fact that there are gadgets which were in testing, which were like literally you place this palm-sized pot next to you, and it becomes noise cancellation when you are talking on webinars or like this, or having work meetings. So I think those kind of things which were I know were already under research will actually find their place in every home. Okay, we're talking about flexible rooms, because more or less every space will have to become either a learning space or a working space. Every child's room will become a learning space. So if there are two children who have to work from the same room, who are sharing a room, we'll have to figure out how that happens. I mean, do they put up a pod around them which absorbs one person's sound or the other, or how do we do this? And of course, touch-free, whether it's soap dispenser, whether it's, I think towels being used by people and shared is going to, even hand towels going to go out of the system completely. So you're going to have hot air, hand drying, free soap dispensers. And these I'm thinking of only from what is already there. I'm sure there will be a plethora of inventions. And that's where the opportunity lies. And even as designers, some of those opportunities lie for us. So this project, Grand Carmen, is on the edges of Bangalore. And this has got a mostly young IT population. The reason I chose this out of other projects to show it to you is because it's a completely car-free environment. And it's an entirely green environment. People enjoy a very healthy lifestyle. People are everywhere. There's not a single road on surface. What happens is right at the beginning, there's been great separation of all vehicles. Now, to me, I thought people are going to be so grateful that they have this situation, because all their deliveries will happen at that lower level that you see on the right-hand side of this plan. Cars and outsiders all come down below. And there is in the basement level, which is grade separated, there is also a lobby. So I can very quickly see that that lobby becomes a sanitization hub, and all outsiders are coming to the basement. So the environment of the community in some ways is likely to become more sacrosanct, because no outsiders coming there. And if he comes there, then he will be going through the sanitization in the basement lobby of any one of these homes. And this is I don't know if they're thinking this. This is what I'm thinking. If I was asked what should they do, this is what they would do. So this is that grade separation. It's daylit, it has natural ventilation, and people enter their homes from here, and there is absolutely no possibility of entering it from top. So in the aftermath, now let's go to commercial projects. Now in the aftermath of COVID-19, I would say in commercial projects, I've been thinking that how will people react to the immediate environment, because commercial project draws a lot of unknown people, right? Even in your workplace, actually in your home, you know what the people are. In your workplace, you know what the people are. In your communities, you know what the people are. Or you will get to know, I think, you soon, if we've forgotten over the last two generations perhaps. In commercial, you don't really know. Okay, so we are redefining what is interaction with the immediate environment. Now, I want to take your thoughts back to when we quickly moved, aping the West, even in India, to hermetically sealed glass buildings. And we opted for that option in terms of efficiency of building, and actually today even cheaper to build perhaps, versus natural ventilation and sunlit buildings. Of course, we work with sustainability standards. We try to advise that buildings shouldn't be deeper than a certain width of floor plate so that we get some sense of daylight. But ventilation, I think, is actually more driven by what the fire officer needs 10% open, or it's not really that we are looking at commercial people who work in their spaces need ventilation. And whatever happens to the HVAC system happens. So, and I think the bigger question is, what are these buildings going to be like, and how do I get there? How do I get to that building, which is in a central business district? It's 40 floors high. I go there by public transport, by metro, or do I take my own car and park 5 basements down? And then do I go up with lifts, which a lot of unknown people will be going all day, all night? So how do I get to my workspace? Okay. then, those of you who are interested in biology, and almost all of us have become since this virus, buildings have to become like their own microbiomes, right? They have to develop their own environment, which is stable. Okay, I think that's what needs to happen. So it will include design, it will include technology, it will include sanitization in addition to technology. Now, is that sanitization happening by first reducing the number of people who come there? Of course, we've talked about density, we've talked about using technology like pods for delivery and so on and so forth. But then we are also talking about tunnels. So far we have talked about great lobbies with great furniture, great chandeliers. We've talked about lobbies becoming workspaces, meeting spaces. But now, actually, lobbies are tunnels. Okay, so is that how building entrances are going to be defined? We come in through a process of sanitization. Post 9/11, we went through having security and body frisking, and got used to the idea of people raising our hands and people running security devices all over your body in public. I mean, I find that notion to date very violating. And now we have tunnels. So will the building entrances be redefined? Will the building entrances be such that we walk in and they are temperature measures or whatever parameters that are set for figuring out your health? Also for you to get a sense of that the building I'm going into is healthy. Okay, we subject ourselves to the amount of security check that we do because we feel safer once that is done. So will we be subjecting ourselves to so much inquiry about health because that will make us feel that the building we're entering is safer? We will be moving to clearly more automation, whether it's contactless, voice and sensor activated, whether they're lifts, taps, entries, doors, biometric is clearly going to get replaced. I don't even know whether the sound will be perfect, because if you have a mask on all the time, half the time people can't understand what I'm saying on the phone when I have a mask on because it's muffled. But anyway, all of those technologies will be the rapid growth areas. And what I'm asking now is, there has been so much focus on commercial buildings which have more amenities being more viable. Okay, but what are these amenities going to be like? Because amenities were meant to gather people. They were meant for gyms, for business centers, for common areas, for sports, for bars, for gathering restaurants. Very successful commercial projects have that at the base. It reminds me of one of our oldest projects which is the Maker Max City. Now the entire base is amazing. It's become the center for a lot of, with its art and displays, become a center for a lot of people in the Bandra Kurla area. But what are these amenities? Now, if I talk about, and contactless delivery I've talked about. Now, are these amenities going to move towards, people ask me, towards farming? Now I wonder, okay, residential, that makes sense. Commercial is shut down in the case of a virus attack. What farming am I going to be talking about, and how am I accessing that? Now, recently I was working on a retail project where the team suggested that we go for farming on the terrace, and I'm thinking, if the mall is shut, who is going to be getting the goods from the farming from the top, and why are they going to farm on top? So these are all questions which I'd like to actually hear from all of you once I wrap it up. Okay. Now I want to talk about the social engagement. What will be the new normal? So commercial space is about ours, right? It's not about mine. Okay. But now there's going to be a debate between mine versus ours. So I'll again refer to a discussion I was having on a design of a project yesterday with our landscape architects in-house. And my team tells me that, oh, Sonali, we can't have now tables. We came to the conclusion we can't have tables for coffee outside, because then there's a lot of shared space and spilling of food and touching of food and so on. So I said, okay, so maybe that outdoor furniture for commercial spaces should go to those kind of lecture hall tables, where you come in, you spray your sanitizer on your table and you sit down on your own table with your coffee on your own table, and then somebody sitting 1 meter apart from you and you're having a conversation. I think vocal cords will be terribly stressed. I think probably everybody will be wearing a headset at all times. But Anyway, so mine versus ours is something that I want to think about, and I want to see how we are able to make this transition without really leading to a lot of other psychological issues. Mine versus ours is very scary. So the next thing I want to talk about is, this is something that we've collated literally from various vendors and friends and supporters in the construction industry who are sending plethora of information on what we should be doing. So we realize that people will be looking in commercial spaces for materials which are integral, impervious. But when I say integral, means it's all solid. It's not like layers and layers of things in between viruses are sitting. Impervious to biological material, and impermeable to and can handle a lot of repeated cleaning. So use of antimicrobial materials, paint shields. Now we've been hearing about antibacterial paint shields. Now let's see what happens in the virus world. Okay, I saw a program on television in Hong Kong where they are already spraying a kind of transparent surface onto various surfaces, which can keep a virus away for 90 days until it needs to be redone again. And it's already, and then apparently when you touch the surface with your hands, the heat sensitive nature of the material already releases a disinfectant impact. I don't know whether it does it with an actual disinfectant, or I don't know how it does it, but this is just a piece of news article that I saw. So things, and then there are already people recommending that use copper fixtures, copper infused mesh in upholstery, because it's better for the, it's more to make products more impermeable. Silver ion technology we've been hearing on for years. We've been hearing washing machines have it, this, that. But now people are actually looking at all these things really seriously. And these are growth areas, I think, for all of us designers, where all of these things will become key to how our buildings are designed. People are talking about lighting, the metal in the lighting fixture, which is more sustainable. So versus using ones which, and more cleanable. So I really don't, I'm not the expert to know what that is. Okay. Now, this is a quick sketch that I want to share with you all. This is how the people movement pattern. So something will be scanned versus touched. And then the queuing up will become much longer, because you're going to queue up 1 meter further from each other. So I think in retrofitted projects, and maybe even in other projects, I think the grand lobbies are going to become queuing lines like this. And there'll be longer queuing lines with 1 meter distancing. So these are, again, there's vehicular, the diagram you see on the right hand side is a vehicular sanitizer gate. So your car comes in and it gets sprayed on the outside if it's carrying anything, so at least the outside is sprayed. Then when you reach inside, you go through a sanitizing tunnel, then you reach a lift. So either lifts will be carrying lesser people. Okay, now the question is, will that mean that buildings will have to get more lifts? Because a lift that could carry 20 earlier can carry 6 now, as you can see in that image. Or is it that there'll be fewer people at work anyway? Or is it that the impatience of right here, right now will have to change? Let's wait, it's safer. Now, this is again a collation of various products that suddenly have been coming in. And I think these are what you'll see in the commercial spaces tomorrow. Look at the way the foot is opening the door. So it's a touch-free door. You will be wearing full sleeves clothes that work most of the time, unlike us architects who wear anything we feel like. But I think people will be formally attired, so then covering as much of their body as possible at all times. So formal is not the right word. People will be wearing maximum coverage clothing. Okay, and this is, and probably the clothing materials will be ones that will have a virus shield or a bacteria shield, and then this is how all our hardware design is going to change. So I would like to talk about a commercial project. Now, this project is an ongoing project of morphogenesis, the Surat Diamond Bourse. It is the world's largest commercial. It's world's largest single building. So just for those of you who, and I mean, it's getting built in India. It's nearing completion in another 12 to 15 months. Most of you probably never heard about it, but that's the way we are, which is why I believe that our design voice needs to be heard around the world. Right now, the world's largest building is the Pentagon, and this is larger than the Pentagon, and it belongs to one single community, which is the Diamond Merchants of Surat. And it's a commercial building because it's all offices and everything that enables the trade of diamonds. And on 95% diamond trade will have some role played out of this building. 95% diamond trade in the world will have some connection to this building, either directly or indirectly. But more importantly, this is going to be the world's largest building, and the competition was won based on seeing how efficiently we can move people, yet meet all their requirements, make an architecturally iconic building, and deal with the unique challenges that come with this profession. Okay. Now you see these drawings on the left. This talks about a lot of diamond merchants' life, which is done in their lifestyle, because they all come from the same community, is reflected in the project. They foster a lot of community activity, including trading is part of their community activity. So the inside and outside was done seamlessly. This picture shows how they sit. And they sit barely half a meter apart, barely, not even that, elbows touching. And this is the standard way of them working. Now, when I was going through the archives of photographs we had and I saw this, and this really got me thinking. This building moves 65,000 people in under 1 hour. Every single day. It moves under. So travel time from site to individual offices is less. Actually, we achieved it at 7 minutes. Okay. Waiting time is 40 seconds right now. That's what it's designed to. Okay. Now this site has been very proactive because being the world's largest building, is preparing itself to restart construction. Given the fact that in India we still have, despite all the technology, we still have a large number of manual works. I mean, I don't have a figure, but if it's the world's largest building and a large amount of it is being done manually in our traditional ways, I would be surprised to think that it would have the world's largest number of labor, okay, at any point. So the sanitization chambers have already been put into place at all entry points to the site. So when we saw this image, which was sent in from site, because they asked us to give them locations where we need to put it, they put this in preparation. Now you look at the 3 arrows that our team put in. Now we feel that there will be sanitization tunnels, sanitization chambers and airlock, and vestibules on all tower entrances, which are dealing with design issues that will be emerging out of the current pandemonium. On the other hand, I feel that this building is more ready, and I feel relieved because the size of it is such that if it wasn't ready at all to adapt, it would have been horrific. So this building, to meet the optimization criteria of cost, actually we used radiant cooling, and the entire 50% of the circulation, 50% of the total area, which is the circulation area, is actually without air conditioning. It works on natural air movement, it works on stack effect, and it works on the flooring having radiant cooling. So this idea of commercial buildings which are hermetically sealed was completely avoided. And this is the world's largest commercial building, world's largest building actually. So this is as we speak, construction that has, I mean, it stopped of course a couple of weeks back, but this is construction going on for the longest. I actually can't remember the figure, but it's some 28 kilometers or something like that of corridors, which are getting this radiant cooling, and therefore they are not air conditioned. And therefore you can see all the large openings on the side of the entire circulation system, and this is ventilated. So we are expecting, the reason this is such is we are expecting a lot of transactional nature of this trade, where they move around outside, transact small quantities of diamonds in Portleys. And that's why, sorry, I'll just go back to the previous slide. That's why there is, you see the diagram, and it's kind of like all the corridors are kind of designed with these green lungs, which kind of feel like parks. So which is why the undulating form of the corridor, as you would have noticed in the images. And these corridors have this. Now this is the project in construction. This is how far it's got. This is about 2 years of work. So I think pace is not bad. Maybe, I don't know when it restarts. I think soon. Maybe 18 months, we see this project finished. So these, you can see some of these wavy forms that you're seeing. These are those sort of indoor / meets outdoor spaces that I've been talking about, where people will be protected yet able to carry and are able to meet. So they don't have to, for example, the smaller offices, which are 300 square feet or 500 square feet, they no longer have to meet people inside their offices, because they can keep the people out, and all their people they're trading with. It probably this, which was a idea that was one of the competition winning ideas, is probably going to be the savior idea now. And that is the project when it finishes. Okay, so I want to bring to you some more questions about the workplace. And I'm going to, I'm being mindful of the time, so I know I have very few minutes left. So I just want to say, is a workplace, is this the end of the traditional office, or are we just going to retrofit it? Are we going to just put screens around each person and we're still going to make it work? Because you can't kind of end the entire world's office space, right? So is it the end of the traditional office space? What is the role of design in reevaluating the face-to-face communication of people? Is social engagement in the age of social distancing? I mean, especially companies that we all admire, Facebook, Google, that they've spent like 50% of their work area is about social engagement with each other. So what does that change in the age of social distancing, or is it because you're not going to socially engage anywhere else and somebody is going to make your workplace so sanitized that you're going to do it more and more at the workplace? Like, I mean, there's so many ways to look at it, right? So I really don't know. Will social distancing make way for workplace distancing? So is it, so there are a couple of ideas about workplace distancing. Is it that we are going to work and not pick up loads of people from 2 hours away from work? Like, for example, those of you who know America, people, it's very normal to drive 1.5 to 2 hours to work. Are we going to keep transferring people and collecting them in one place? Or are we going to decentralize and make smaller workplaces and learn to use the digital platform as we all have accelerated in the last 2 months? So is there going to be distancing in that way by decentralizing? Or is it going to be actually physical distance and I will sit further from you? 50% workforce. Is it going to be, we're going to allocate space as per need of the work, or work from home percentage, or are we going to change job descriptions as per the space we have available? So technology will become how much of a collaboration and communication tool and how much of a distancing tool. Sorry. And the last thing I want to leave you with is evolution of urban digital pods. Is it safer to work outdoors? I see the growth of outdoor work pods which can mitigate the environmental conditions a little bit and breathing fresh air in a clean environment I'm going to probably feel safer doing that. So this is the diagram, which I like quite a lot, which was put together by some of my colleagues, and it says evolution of workplace strategy. So workplace has, from times immemorial, when you see those pictures of the American typing pool sort of places that came up, and then we went into cabins. Then for the last 5-6 years, with the great research that all our workplace furniture making companies do, we have come up with new terminology: jump space, hive, haven, plaza, co-create, so on and so forth. And this is kind of showing the last 5 years pre-pandemic behavior. Then during a pandemic, what happens to these spaces? They become family room, become multitasking, jump space. Then library and study will probably become plaza. Okay, living room will become a cove. It's no longer, because who are you entertaining and who are you sitting with in the living room? So it probably becomes a working cove. Okay, bedroom becomes your haven away from all this. Okay, and then we have virtual workspaces where we co-create. Now we are moving on in alternate work weeks. We will move on to 40% reduction in footprint as one of the researches in office area over time. So I don't know what exists, what it will convert to, I don't know. Then there'll be evolution of urban digital pods, which I just talked about. And there'll be focused work and collaboration at virtual platforms. So actually we'll start bothering more about what our virtual background is looking like. We'll be dressing up for the virtual, what needs to be done in the new environment. And we will be designing spaces where we are planning on 1 meter apart. Now, we looked at that, this is what a new grouping will look like. Okay, there'll be a group A, which will work on, this is again from a source that we referred to. This is what they're saying, that whilst the offices will stay as large as they were, because the distance and the area given to each person is more, but this is how it will be. It'll be alternate working. Now, very quickly, we found these online. Now, these are already methodologies being evolved to how to work in a common space, which is sanitized, but yet maintain a social distance from each other. So these are some more anthropometrics, which are different from the anthropometrics we've been moving to. IT companies that I work with, we have actually moved to workstations which are 2 feet by 4 feet. Okay, and kind of democratically that size. Look at this now. This is recommending, this is just again going back to a larger distance. Probably, actually, if you ask me, this is a space standard which we probably had 15 years ago. I remember designing 5 feet workstations across and 5 feet Ls for everyone at the start of my career. So are we actually inventing something new here? No. When I look at it, this space standard was what we thought was correct for humans to work. And we're just going to have to return to that. Okay, now this is something, again, if you can see this kind of transparent partition, this also came on mail to me from a company you probably all have worked with, Bene. They have very quickly created this shield, which can be kept horizontally or vertically and in your workspace, so that viruses from you talking to each other or sneezing or whatever don't travel to the person across, and you simply place it on, and it's being sold in groups of 4, and you order them for your office before you open, and this is it. So is this what we are moving towards? So there is, if there is, I prefer this to having a mask on my own face, but having said that, we just have to, will we have to get used to talking to people through shields all the time? But I do think that in the immediate short run, something like this will have huge success. I look at a project which we have just handed over, and these images are actually in the last few weeks of construction. This is Zydus Cadila, which all of you probably been reading about, because it is at the forefront of right now creating the medication currently available and vaccine later. Now, this was a project we did on in the outskirts of Ahmedabad, and it was based on our standard sustainability things that we like to do. We look at the regional context, use local material, look at sustainability from a solar perspective, water saving perspective. Here it was inspired by Kansara art, by Bhungas. And we looked at iconicism, functionality, sustainability. But actually, when I look at this building today, I feel quite happy. I feel it's so ready, because this was a building where we didn't cringe on space standards. We didn't pack people. Part of the brief was to create, people will work in their workspace by themselves, but we have created over 100 spaces where they can meet, interact, and leave. Okay. And a lot of these interaction spaces were agile, and they were individual and reconfigurable. So that gives me a lot of happiness, where I think one of our most recent projects is very ready for transformation. This is a cross section through the project and its various activities. So 100% of the workspace is daylit. And this is the project. Now, there were a lot of spaces for people to work outside of their office space. And I think this is going to be really the social spine. There was a socially active spine, which was enabled for work and work conversations, which was 200 meters long, and it was at every floor, varying from 4 to 8 meters in width. And this is going to actually be the reconfigurable part of the project, where people can have meetings without letting strangers into their work environment of their own department and community. Every space was daylit. These are actually breakout spaces that you see. And if you see the furniture below in it, it's completely reconfigurable. So we can just space this apart. I'm going to recommend that they just move it apart, and we are done. There was a lot of, now this image is of their dining room, which is attached to a lot of outdoor space. And either they will go into multiple shifts of eating, but you can see from the drawing that it's already quite far apart, when it is getting beyond the acceptable number, and I don't know how and when these numbers will be established, they are connected outdoor spaces where, with few minor changes, they can become extension spaces to loosen up the density. Now, this office is a small office, but office I'm very fond of, which we did a couple of years ago. This office, now the diagram that you see where all this purple is moving, is actually a completely reconfigurable office, and every workstation slides and moves, and every piece of furniture slides and moves, and you don't need assistance or to call the furniture manufacturer to come and do it. There are diagrams all over the office of how to reconfigure it for your need for the day. So this is going to work for different people coming to work on different days in the same location because of its reconfigurability. And I'm quite thrilled when I'm thinking of this project, because I think it's already ready. Because it was already having different people coming to work at different days for a completely different reason, not a COVID reason. But I think this project is more COVID ready than perhaps some of the other work. So these are reconfigurable spaces. And these pictures you see have been taken at different times, where they have reconfigured it themselves to meet different requirements. And again, you can see the reconfigurability of it. So now they'll just stay apart, like this apart part of the picture is what they'll stay as. So this is a lot of attached outdoors where they already use these as extended meeting spaces. So if people want to have, because different people call into work different days in this office. So if there are more people, they work outside. If the weather's good, they work outside. So now, and they are separated. The sound barriers you can see on the left are those mobile green walls. So I think this space with minor modifications or perhaps removing the coffee tables actually, is going to work well in this current environment. Now, so we are now talking about a lot of virtual receptions, small meeting pods. These things will be more, perhaps, that will be in play. So on that note, I would like to finish my part of the monologue, and I'd like to hear more from others. So Geeta, I'm done for now.
Thank you, Sonali, for all those insights into what can be done. It's interesting to see this perspective, COVID, while it seems to have brought us together in many ways that you talked about, where we are sharing and caring, but we as architects suddenly who are supposed to bridge distances are suddenly considering having to create distances. The irony of it all. And this seems to be also echoing on the questions that have been asked. I'm just clubbing a few of the questions together, and then I'll get one of the people who put up the question to ask, put it to you as well. Asking you about what about projects? You showed us 5 projects that lend itself to morphing. What about those that don't lend itself to morphing? Also, there are many who say that, which is what is being reflected in the chats as well, that this is temporary, 3 months or even 2 years. What happens if it becomes business as usual once this virus is vanquished? By making these changes in the interim, are we actually perpetuating these temporary mandates? Instead, should we look at temporary solutions? Sagar says urbanists have been trying to tear down walls literally and figuratively between sites and the rest of the city. If gated communities, closed communities are going to become the new norm and maybe bring smaller communities together, will it lead to a disconnect from the larger city fabric? Will it lead to bigger divides between economic classes? How do we design for that? There's someone who's interestingly said, is it time to redefine the intimate, the personal and the social space? There's also a question on streets. We're talking about, number of people on the road reducing. What happens to the 6, 12 lane roads that have been built to cater to this large traffic? So I will ask Anshul Chodha to unmute himself and put all this together and articulate his question. Anshul, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sonali, hi. I'm just going to go to a place where there's less noise. There's a lot of webinars going on around me. Yes. So Sonali, while all the solutions you suggested are surely solutions that we need to take care of, given the present circumstances, my concern in the long run would be that imagine if this was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction where we started making these changes. I do understand that the changes with respect to health and hygiene are in any case things that need to be order of the day, whether or not we have a pandemic, to make our spaces much more healthier and spaces that don't give rise to further pandemics. But considering that this particular pandemic may be short-lived, and I hope that it is, that if we make any major changes to the way we live, which are going to be detrimental to us, where we make our spaces start responding to the way we live right now, and then those changes have to be integrated later, we may just be doing ourselves a bit of a disservice. But having said that, it is again, there's no guarantee that this vaccine is coming out in a hurry, and it's anyone's guess. So it's just a question that I'm throwing out as to whether, to what extent should we be looking to, how serious are these aspects?
Okay, so, I came across an article which said pandemic / pandemonium. Okay. And then I thought to myself, this badly titled article, it should be the pandemonium that created the pandemic. Okay. So when we talk about going back to our normal life, it is assuming that anyway that all of it was worth going back to. So first question I want to say is, put forward to you is, do we really want to return to all of that we considered normal? Or is some of it okay to return to and some of it to be reinvented? Okay. At the end of the day, we have reached such a point of environmental abuse. It's not degradation; it is abuse. That humanity has come down to burning forests, has come down to living one with animals, has invaded every habitat possible, and now we are taking pictures of leopard roaming in city. But we've been roaming in their habitat for so long because our cities have expanded. We want to build more and more. We have packed people closer and closer in as little as 2 decades. It's not going back to a century ago. What I was designing, the distance in workplace was the normal 2 decades ago. Okay, so why do we want to go back to a normal where everybody sits in 2x4 workstations like a factory?
Yes, I agree. So assuming
there is a lot to be, and it's not about the vaccine. I also think the second part that we learn as architects is we always cater to the livability. And what is livability? It is the psychology of what our client wants to do, or what people should be doing. Right? So is it the fact that even at a 2-day break, the first thought that comes into mind is get on a cheap flight and get to Thailand for a holiday or get to Dubai for a holiday? I mean, I think this travel ban for a while is probably going to get us to rethink that, is that really how families grow, and is that really how communities grow? And is the only method of entertaining ourselves socially that which is outbound versus a little introspective to our community at large? I mean, is the returning back to localized community thinking, is it such a bad thing? So I'm not certain that everything that we call normal is worth returning to any which way. Okay, I'm not certain that going higher and deeper into I like high rises. Okay, I have a fascination for looking up and seeing amazing tall buildings. So I am not against the idea of tall buildings, but I just want to stop and think that, is it necessary for so many people together to take up just such little square meterage of Mother Earth? Okay, and then pump that much waste into it and then say we will sanitize this waste, then we will put it back into the ground. God knows, like we, human beings have gone into layers and layers and layers of use and abuse, a large amount of it through the built environment that we are responsible for. So I think this is, yes, the virus will be vanquished. I am very optimistic. Some vaccine or the other will come out. But does that mean it's the end to this? And does that mean we don't learn and we say, okay, now storybook matter shut, let's go back to normal? I think this is going to be a learning time. I also think, talking about human psychology, we all don't forget things easily. Have we stopped checking 19 years after 9/11? Have we stopped checking? Has terror disappeared? Is not mankind at war? So I don't believe that the vaccine will come and next day this will, what many people are calling a war-like situation, that next day this will disappear. Our minds and our psychology will train us for something else.
Yeah, fair point. I totally agree with you. And I think it's a time for us to reflect on every aspect of our lives, every aspect in terms of human beings. And this is something that we have created for ourselves, while, making changes to the built environment temporarily, just for the pandemic, I'm not sure of. But in terms of a holistic perspective, I totally agree with you, and this is going to be a game changer for everyone. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Anshul. So I've slotted these questions that have come in different categories, and the first category I'm looking at is design. So how do you, Nitin Patel actually asks this on, how do you foresee the future of commercial spaces which are, you spoke about TCS advocating work for home for at least another 2 years is what they say. So what adaptive reuse can these spaces now be put to? What paradigm shift do you envisage in the design of commercial districts? You spoke about how it will affect workplace design through your projects, but maybe this is something that you could address.
So I think, again, it can't be seen only as what will happen to the commercial space. Because one, I think we had cramped people a bit too much, by and large, all across the world. So I think they'll get decongested a little bit, which can only be good. I also think that you have to see now the residential and the commercial in sync with each other. Okay, I think you can't see, because if people are working partially from home, then they also might require more space and not be squeezed in to the smaller and smaller and smaller homes as they have worldwide. Okay, so I think it will be a reorganizing of the same amount of square meterage.
If that was the case, again, it brings me to Manasa Aluru's specific question. Manasa, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question? She's talking about the specific context of South Asian cities where we don't have a choice of low density really. Manasa is there?
Yeah, hi. Yes, I was just wondering, given you're talking about square meterage and how it gets allocated, say countries like India or Hong Kong, where de-densification is not as possible as in a Western city with low population density.
Yes.
Could we even begin to imagine our new cityscape then?
So I think, yes. So, but what is going to happen perhaps is now in very, very dense environments like Mumbai also somehow falls probably, and some parts of Mumbai fall under that situation. I think what's going to happen is at least more migration to that area will stop. When as more and more ways of working come up, I believe we need decentralized planning. So there will be non-city, non-urban locations for workplace. And maybe de-densification not going to happen by lesser buildings, but it's probably going to happen eventually with lesser people in the same buildings. Okay, so I think I haven't actually specifically thought about Hong Kong per se, and I know that there is no space to move in Hong Kong at the moment. But what if the office spaces had maybe over a period of time had lesser people? What if all those really small, what Hong Kong was famous for, those really small apartments for a majority of the workforce? Eventually, what if the de-densification of people leads to 2 apartments getting retrofitted to become 1? Maybe.
Yeah, but overall, I think we do have limited livable space. This also comes through in Ratna Chandra Tumala's question. Is Ratna Chandra here? Where he's talking about migration from smaller towns into cities. Is Ratna Chandra here? Would you like to ask your question or should I? So he says, can we expect any changes after this COVID-19 in villages and small towns? We've talked a lot about the urban centers. If they're provided the right kind of amenities. I think he's talking about reverse migration working.
So here, Geeta, I've also been reading some of the questions that are coming in on the chat.
Yeah.
So here I want to take the Surat Diamond Boards example, because whilst it looks like an exercise in megalomania by having 7 million square feet in a single building, but actually what it has done is that a typical life of somebody who worked in the diamond trade when it was oriented out of Mumbai, unless it's the owner of the diamond business, they couldn't afford to live in Mumbai. So people from over 4 to 5 hours of train travel time from all over the Western belt were collected. Every morning would get onto trains starting from 3:30 to 4:30 a.m. Get to Mumbai, do their work, get onto the trains back at night by 7:30, 8 p.m. and reach home by 12 and wake up again at 4 to board a train at 4:30. And sleep on the trains. So actually, this project was envisaged by their community to stop this. Okay. And it has also been envisaged with a certain amount of town planning, schools, hospital, colleges. And this is the urban attractor, where everybody is not going off to be in a squatting or a slumming situation in Mumbai, but actually they are kind of centrally located amongst in the 2 hour travel distance time versus 4.5 or 5 hour travel distance time, with the idea of finally creating the entire hub here. By the time it is a community hub. So the idea is to slowly move them all into this area, which is on the outskirts of Dream City, this is called, which is on the outskirts of Surat, which is where bulk of the trade is. So the idea was to move it away from Mumbai, whilst the trade is so large, therefore the scale is so large. But it's actually a decentralized, you can in some way say it's a decentralized version of what would have otherwise been in Mumbai.
But Surat is also seeing a lot of the protests by migrants who want to get back to UP or wherever else as well right now. So I think it's going to take a while for...
yeah, because most of southern Gujarat and Maharashtra goes there to work now. Right. And with this center, they'll all have homes and places and offices and hospitals and schools, and they can actually move here.
Mm-hmm. So there seems to be a lot of concern on education. There is this young architect, I think she's still a student, Aditi Hota, who talks about how will this affect fresh graduates. Current thesis students are very skeptical about job opportunities. How will they even finish their current program? Is it time to revisit our education system? I'd like maybe Khadija, who's actually the Board of Architectural Education head in Pakistan, who's also listening in, to put her question to you, Sonali. I'm not sure you're in the right place to answer because you're really in practice, not in academics, but you could probably see.
But I am in touch. I am deeply in touch with academics.
Khadija, would you like to unmute yourself? I mean, unmuting Khadija, I can see her here.
Yeah, hi. I think it has been a great talk and thanks to Geeta and ACEDGE for arranging it. The question that I was asking is basically now, Sonali spoke all about the changes in the norms in the practice that she foresees. What would the impact of that do you foresee in architectural education?
Okay, so, I've had a couple of mails coming in from students who wanted to intern, and now obviously how will they do the internship online. I myself have 2 children who are college going, and they are not architects, but I assure you that the job insecurity and this internship and training insecurity is across all fields. They are in banking and consulting and technology, and it's in all fields. So insecurity, I think, is what the world is living with right now. This is something I'm hoping is short-lived, because at the end of the day, I've even had students saying it's so demotivating. We will come out of college now and there will be no jobs, ma'am. Any advice? I've actually had people writing that in. The thing is, we are hearing so much about depression, recession. I have a zero financial mind, so I really can't get into figures of what that means for people. But I also see the opportunity in there, because the world is sitting at a paradigm change. If you think like a startup thinks, that what is it that is required now? We've lived the last decade in the world of startups and their amazing success stories. So all these, I just touched upon things that have come about in the first 2 months of this COVID, but there's so many new things to design. There's so many new things to think. And an architect's or a designer's job is, through design, make the life of humans on earth more comfortable. That's what we do, right? So this is when there is, I think, a greater opportunity at the point of paradigm shift, which is where we are. We are really in a paradigm, not shift actually, a paradigm change mode. So I think a lot of positive reinforcement of architects, young architects, architectural students, that yes, there is an immediate recession, which means people say real estate has been hit the hardest, so the architects will be hit hardest. Of course, all that is the truth. I'm not going away from that, but that is the truth for many people. It's not just us. in this design community. But our opportunity is one of the greater ones that awaits us, because we help shape the world. That is our job. And the world needs a lot of reshaping right now. So I would tell students to look at it from a positive perspective of the future that they can mold.
Thank you for those positive, that positive outlook for students. Sure would be reassuring, but I still think they're staring at a lot of uncertainty. I'm glad you said we hope it's temporary. But I have a question. I'm going to take Khadija's question. I'm going to read it out, where again she asks about, we spoke about a lot of technology. It seems it's possible that technology is likely to drive humans. You were talking about a lot of things as you enter that happen before you actually get into the space that you want to be in. And what is this going to impact? How is this going to impact the human psyche? How do you start getting used to stuff like that is Khadija's question.
So we got used to computers, right? Okay. When I was born, there were no computers, at least none that were there in everybody's house. There were some supercomputers sitting in somewhere in some science lab. We got used to cell phones. Okay. So I think it's the very nature of human beings. It's not always the nicest experience, but we do get used to it. Okay. I told you, I'm not used to still offensively being frisked, which are the post 9/11 thing. 19 years later, I am very uncomfortable with it. Okay, but it's part of my daily life. I get frisked wherever I go. And similarly, I mean, it's awful to think we'll be planning for shields in between people. It's awful. I mean, but then it's awful to know that the tactility of human touch is going to disappear. Having said the resurgence of Namaste is a big thing that has happened. So I'm personally, I hate it. Personally, I hate it that I have to think about not being in touch with people. I'm a very connect face-on type of person. I'm slightly technologically challenged as well. So it's a very scary time for my future. And but I think human beings adapt. That is our very nature.
I was telling Pramod yesterday that I can't believe that we won't be happy hugging people anymore. That's something that I think should start happening sooner than later. I think we have time for one more question, and I'd like to give the opportunity to Anushka. You had a question on technology. Maybe you could, Anushka Shom.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Would you like to?
Yes, ma'am.
You're a fresh graduate, Anushka?
No, actually, I'm still in my 4th year right now.
Nice to end with a question from a young student. Go ahead and ask your question on technology.
So actually, I've been looking at a lot of talks online as well, online only, with respect to what's going around the world according to the impact. So a lot of architects abroad have been suggesting completely sustainable houses, individually owned houses, equipped with self-generating energy, etc. And somewhere they are even saying that they might want bunkers. So like every house should have a bunker to try to mitigate things like that. So when you have talks like these, you have to understand the economic impact of those things, and not everyone will be able to afford something like that, especially in India, where we have a large population who cannot afford any luxuries per se. So I mean, even when you talk about a lot of technological changes, will that be available to all the people of India? So if we want to contain a pandemic or an epidemic, we need to have some strategies which can be applicable to all the people across all economic classes. So how can we develop more on that?
One of the things that this pandemic has taught us is democracy. Okay, and I think and people are at least they are speaking in a more humane tone. I don't know how long it lasts, but we know that it has impacted all of us. It has impacted the most powerful of them. How many presidents and prime ministers have gotten this? Okay, with their entourage of protection, they couldn't be protected. So I think democracy is one of the good outcomes of this. It'll remind us of equality. Okay. Now, technology, I have great faith in, even though, as I gave a disclaimer, I'm not that technologically adept. But one of the things that works in its favor, that it only gets cheaper. And technology has constantly got cheaper. And the innovators of technology are usually the youngest, most agile minds. And they know that technology is not meaningful if it doesn't reach the masses. So any impact from technology always for the masses, and it's been so far. Look at the amount of digital bandwidth that, I mean, the world is sharing their pain as well as plans to move forward only because of technology today. So I have faith in technology.
Thank you. Thanks, Sonali. That kind of brings us to the end of this session. I'd like to convey my gratitude for the relevant and thought-provoking presentation and session, where I think a lot of the people who are watching it also kind of added life to it and gave all of us food of thought to ruminate over and prepare ourselves to get back to a new normal, but hopefully not very, very distant from where we are just now. And for all those who have enrolled for the next session, a conversation with the base group anchored by architect Vijay Ramachandran, do hop on to the broadcast right away immediately after this. You can use the same link, but the password is different. So look forward to seeing all of you on the other side. Thank you, Sonali, once again.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you for taking the time out. Thank you.
God bless.